So I notice that there's a square root in the denominator, and the first thing I want to do is get rid of the square root because we're not allowed square roots in the denominator. Now to do that, what I do is I multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by the complement of the denominator. Now the complement of the denominator is negative 2x squared minus 4 square root of 5x squared y to the 4. And so we notice that the complement of the denominator is the same thing as the denominator, except in between the two terms, instead of having a plus, we have a minus. So same thing on top, minus 2x squared minus 4 square root of 5x squared y to the 4. Now, when I multiply the tops together, I get, I distribute the 3y into the bracket, and that gives me minus 6x squared y minus 12y times the square root of 5x squared y to the 4 divided by, and multiplying the two denominators together, because they're complements, what I get is the square of the first term minus the square of the second term. So this is going to give me 4x to the 4 minus 16, and the square of the square root means that the square root disappears, and I've got 5x squared y 4. Now notice that I put what was under the square root in brackets, and that's because the 16, which comes from multiplying 4 by 4, this is still multiplying everything that was under the square root, which is now gone. So I need to keep the brackets there. And let's now distribute this inside. And what I get is I get minus 6x squared y minus 12y over the square root of 5x squared y to the 4 divided by 4x to the 4 minus 80x squared y to the 4. Now, I notice, I'm going to circle in red, I notice that there's a x squared here and a y to the 4 here under the square root, which means, since I've got even powers, I can take them out of the square root, and of course I have to divide the exponent by 2. So when I do take them out of the square root, what I get looks like, let's see if I can just slide this up a little bit. What I get is minus 6 x to the x squared y minus 12 times y times, now the x squared becomes x, times the y to the 4 becomes y squared, and then what's left in the square root is just the 5. All this divided by 4x to the 4 minus 80 x squared y to the 4. Okay, good. So now I'm going to circle in green a y over here and a y squared over here. They're multiplying each other, so I'm going to put them together, and this is going to give me minus 6x squared y minus 12 times x times y cubed times the square root of 5 divided by, and in the denominator I'm going to leave it the way it is, x to the 4 minus 80 x squared y to the 4. Now I notice that there's some like terms in the numerator and the denominator that I can factor out, and in the top I notice that there's an x that I can take out and a y that I can take out. So I will rewrite that by factoring out the x, the y, and a negative 6. So negative 6, x, and y come out, and what's left in here is x minus, oops, it becomes plus now because I took out the negative, plus 2 times y squared square root of 5. That's what's left in my bracket after I factor out the negative 6x over 6xy. In the denominator, I will also factor out a 4, I'll factor out an x and an x squared. And what's left is 1. Sorry, what's left is an x squared and minus 20 y to the 4. Now that I've factored out things from the top and the bottom, now I can start reducing. Now I see that there's an x on top that I can reduce with one of the x's on the bottom. I see that there's a 2 that I can factor from the 6, which gives me 3, and a 2 from the 4, which gives me 2. And that's it. That's all that's left that I can factor. So what I do now, is now that I've factored out and canceled as much as I can, I'm going to multiply back in what's left. And so what I have left is a negative 3y on top. Let me write that out. Negative 3y, x plus 2y squared, square root of 5, divided by 2x, x squared minus 20y to the 4. So now let's distribute those things in front of the brackets back inside the bracket. And so I have minus 3y times x is minus 3xy minus 6y cubed square root of 5 divided by, and now I'm going to distribute the 2x inside the bracket. I get 2x cubed minus 40xy to the 4. And at this point I'm done.